The first thing Luke Carter noticed beneath the faded grey blanket was a trembling hand, its wrist bruised by rough rope and its fingers still fighting to hold on. The early morning sun burned across the empty plains outside Dodge City, Kansas, turning the dust into waves of gold. Luke was 49 years old, a quiet rancher who had spent years avoiding trouble after losing his family. His ranch stood miles away from the nearest neighbor, where silence usually lasted longer than words. But that morning, silence carried a secret. A weathered wagon stood beside his front gate, with no driver, no horses, only a tired mule chewing dry grass, as if it had been waiting there through the night. A faded blanket covered something inside, and a small note rested beneath a piece of twine. Luke unfolded it carefully. Only 3 words were written in heavy black ink. Paid. Leave her. No signature. No explanation. No mercy. A cold feeling settled in his chest. He had never paid anyone for anything except ranch supplies. Someone had used his name without permission. Slowly, he pulled the blanket aside. A young woman lay curled inside the wagon, covered in dust, her clothes torn from weeks of hardship. Deep marks circled her wrists where thick ropes had rubbed her skin raw. Her lips were dry, and bruises shadowed one side of her face. She forced her eyes open and stared directly at Luke, with a mixture of fear and hopelessness. Her voice barely escaped her throat. "You paid for me. Now finish it." Luke remained perfectly still. His face showed neither anger nor surprise. Instead, he quietly pulled a small knife from his belt and sliced through the ropes around her wrists. "I never bought you," he said calmly, "and nobody owns another soul while I'm breathing." She looked confused, almost disappointed, as if kindness had become harder to believe than cruelty. Luke offered her a canteen of fresh water, but instead of grabbing it, she watched him carefully, waiting for the trap hidden behind his gentle words. He stepped back to give her room. "Drink when you're ready. No one will force you here." After helping her inside the ranch house, Luke returned to inspect the wagon. Strange wheel marks stopped a short distance from the gate before disappearing, as though another team had pushed the wagon into place to hide their tracks. Then he noticed a symbol carved into the wooden tailboard, a simple black raven inside a circle. The sight froze him where he stood. Years earlier, he had seen the same mark burned onto a barn owned by ruthless outlaw Victor Kane, a smuggler who traded stolen cattle, weapons, and sometimes desperate people. Luke believed Kane had disappeared forever after a deadly gunfight, but this mark proved otherwise. Inside the cabin, the young woman quietly whispered her name. "My name is Anna." Luke nodded respectfully. "I'm Luke Carter. You're safe here." Anna lowered her eyes. "No place is safe." From Victor Kane. Before Luke could answer, his old sheepdog began barking wildly toward the northern hills. Luke stepped outside and spotted a rider watching the ranch from the top of a distant ridge before disappearing into the morning haze. Someone already knew where Anna was, and they were coming to take her back. Luke Carter wasted no time. He saddled his horse before sunrise, while the distant hills remained wrapped in pale morning mist. Every instinct told him the rider on the ridge had not come alone. Men like Victor Kane never sent only one pair of eyes when valuable property was involved. Inside the cabin, Anna stood beside the window holding a warm cup of coffee with both hands. Her face looked stronger than the day before, but fear still lived behind her eyes. Luke placed an old revolver on the table, then quietly removed every bullet before sliding it toward her. "If trouble comes before I return, hide. This gun isn't for fighting. It's to remind you that you have choices besides fear." Anna looked at him with confusion. "Why would you risk your life for someone you've never met?" Luke adjusted his hat before answering. "Because years ago, nobody risked theirs for my family." Without another word, he rode toward Dodge City, the dusty streets already filling with merchants, cowboys, and wagon drivers. His first stop was the freight office, where shipments from every corner of the territory were recorded. Behind the counter sat an elderly clerk named Samuel Briggs, a man whose memory was sharper than most men's eyesight. Luke quietly placed the folded note on the desk. Samuel frowned the moment he saw the black ink. "I hoped I'd never see this again," he whispered. He unlocked an old ledger and slowly turned several pages before stopping. Luke's name appeared beside a shipment of ranch tools, flour, and fencing wire. Underneath, written in different handwriting, was another entry: "Special cargo delivered." Luke clenched his jaw. "I never approved that," Samuel nodded. "I know. Somebody added it after your payment cleared." Luke leaned closer. "Who?" Samuel hesitated before lowering his voice. "Victor Kane owns more than cattle trails now. He owns signatures, records, and men willing to lie." Luke felt anger rise, but he forced himself to stay calm. "Who signed the change?" Samuel glanced toward the courthouse. "A deputy with expensive habits." Luke left immediately. He knew corrupted paper could only be defeated by honest paper. At the small courthouse he met Judge Nathan Brooks, an aging man respected across the county for refusing bribes. Luke explained everything from the mysterious wagon to the forged ledger. The judge listened without interrupting. When Luke finished, Nathan removed his glasses and sighed deeply. "If Kane forged your payment, he'll claim the law is on his side." Luke nodded. "How do I stop him?" The judge answered without hesitation. "Bring Anna here tomorrow. If she chooses freely, I'll record her sworn statement before witnesses. Truth carries more weight than a forged ledger." Luke thanked him and hurried home before sunset. As his ranch came into view, something immediately felt wrong. The front gate stood open. Fresh horse tracks covered the yard. Luke jumped from the saddle and rushed toward the cabin. The door hung halfway open, swinging slowly in the evening wind. Inside, the furniture had been overturned. Drawers emptied across the floor, but Anna was nowhere to be seen. Then he heard a weak voice from the barn. Luke ran inside and found Anna hiding behind a stack of hay bales, shaking but alive. Before either of them could speak, 3 distant gunshots echoed across the valley, followed by the unmistakable sound of riders, charging straight toward the ranch. To find out who survives the night, stay with Western Storyverse, because the real battle is only beginning. The thunder of galloping horses rolled across the valley like an approaching storm. Luke Carter stepped in front of the barn, calmly loading his revolver, while Anna remained hidden behind the hay bales. The evening sky glowed deep orange as dust rose along the ranch road. 3 riders appeared first, their faces hidden beneath dark hats, followed by a 4th horse carrying a tall man dressed in a black coat. Luke recognized him immediately. Victor Kane had returned. The outlaw guided his horse to a stop only a few yards from the gate and smiled as though he had already won. "You're protecting something that belongs to me," he called out. Luke's eyes never left him. "People aren't property." Victor laughed. "The papers say otherwise." Luke slowly reached into his coat and pulled out the forged shipping note. "Paper lies, truth doesn't." Victor's smile faded. He nodded toward his riders and 2 men started forward. Luke fired one warning shot into the dirt between them. The horses reared, forcing both riders to pull back. "The next bullet won't miss," Luke said quietly. Victor studied the rancher for a long moment before speaking again. "You think one man can stop me?" Luke answered without raising his voice, "No, but one honest man can expose you." At that very moment, another sound echoed across the prairie. More horses were approaching, but these riders carried sheriff's badges and rode beside Judge Nathan Brooks. Samuel Briggs followed behind them with the freight ledger tucked beneath his arm. Victor's confident expression disappeared. The judge raised his voice. Victor Kane, the forged records have been uncovered. Witnesses have signed sworn statements, and your clerk confessed everything this afternoon. Victor glanced toward his own men, but none of them moved. One by one they lowered their weapons, realizing their leader's lies had finally caught up with him. Furious, Victor pulled his revolver and aimed directly at Luke. Before he could fire, Anna stepped out from the barn. Her voice rang across the silent ranch. "I'm not running anymore!" Every eye turned toward her. She walked forward with steady steps until she stood beside Luke. Looking straight at the judge, she declared, "No one bought me. I was kidnapped, threatened, and treated like cargo. Today, I choose my own future." The judge nodded firmly while the sheriff ordered Victor to drop his weapon. Seeing no escape, Victor slowly lowered the revolver before deputies rushed forward and placed him in handcuffs. As the prisoners were taken away, silence returned to the ranch for the first time in days. Anna looked toward the open fields where the sunset painted the sky with shades of gold and crimson. "I don't know where I'll go now," she admitted softly. Luke smiled for the first time in years. "You don't have to decide tonight. This ranch has room for honest people." Anna looked at him with grateful eyes, no longer filled with fear but with hope. The long nightmare had finally ended, and a new journey was waiting beyond the horizon. If you enjoyed this Wild West adventure, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Western Storyverse for more original frontier stories where courage, justice, and hope always ride together.